Tiger Woods had always been an enigma, a man of precision and poise who had mastered the art of keeping the world at arm's length. His story was one of unparalleled success, tempered by very public failures, and a relentless drive to reclaim his legacy. On a crisp autumn morning, he was headed to his favorite golf course for a private round before a charity gala later that evening. Dressed in his signature black and red, Woods moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen the highest peaks and darkest valleys of life. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. As he stepped out of his sleek black SUV, the hum of early morning activity surrounded him. Groundskeepers trimmed the lush greens, caddies readied their players' bags, and a light mist hovered over the fairway. Everything seemed poised, ready for another day in the curated perfection of an elite golfer's world. But as he approached the clubhouse, something unexpected happened. A man, disheveled and weathered by time, emerged from behind a row of ornamental shrubs. His clothes hung loosely, tattered and faded, and his face bore the unmistakable lines of hardship. He didn't blend into the manicured scenery, his presence stark and incongruous against the backdrop of privilege and exclusivity. The man stepped forward hesitantly, as though caught between a desperate need and the fear of rejection. "Excuse me," the man called out, his voice rough and low like someone unused to speaking much. "Can you spare $1?" Tiger Woods paused mid-step, his eyes locking onto the stranger. For a moment there was silence. The request was so simple, so unremarkable, and yet it carried the weight of an entire life unseen. Woods could have kept walking, dismissed the man with a polite shake of his head, or ignored him entirely, as so many others likely had. But instead, he turned fully to face the man, studying him with an intensity that made the stranger shift uneasily. "What's your name?" Woods asked, his voice calm but probing. The man blinked, as though the question had caught him off guard. "David," he replied hesitantly. "David Miller." Woods nodded, taking in the way David's eyes darted nervously, his fingers fidgeting with the frayed hem of his jacket. "David, what's $1 going to do for you today?" David hesitated, his gaze falling to the ground. I just need a little help," he stammered. "Haven't eaten since yesterday, and I thought maybe I could get a coffee or something. I'm not looking for much, just trying to get by." Tiger Woods was no stranger to the burden of judgment. He understood how quickly people could reduce someone's entire existence to a single moment or mistake. He reached into his pocket, but instead of pulling out $1, he retrieved his wallet and opened it. The faint rustle of bills seemed louder in the morning quiet. David watched, his expression a mix of hope and skepticism. But Woods didn't hand him a single bill. Instead, he withdrew a crisp $100 note and held it out. "Here," Woods said, his tone matter-of-fact. "This should cover more than coffee." David's eyes widened, disbelief washing over his face. I don't know what to say," he stuttered. "Are you sure?" Woods smiled faintly, a flicker of warmth breaking through his typically reserved demeanor. "I'm sure, but that's not all." Before David could process what was happening, Woods motioned toward the clubhouse. "Come inside with me. Let's get you something to eat." David hesitated, glancing down at his ragged appearance. "I don't think they'd want someone like me in there," he muttered. Woods' expression hardened, his jaw tightening. "If they have a problem, they can take it up with me." The two men walked into the clubhouse together, an odd pairing that drew stares and whispers from the staff and patrons. But Woods was unbothered, his presence commanding enough to silence any objections. He guided David to a table near the window where sunlight streamed in, illuminating the polished wood and pristine linens. A server approached nervously, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. "Bring him whatever he wants," Woods said firmly, "and put it on my tab." David ordered a modest breakfast, a stack of pancakes, scrambled eggs, and a cup of black coffee. As he ate, Woods sat across from him, sipping his own coffee and asking questions. He learned that David had once been a construction worker, but a series of unfortunate events, an injury, mounting medical bills, and the loss of his home, had left him on the streets. "I wasn't always like this," David said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I had a life, you know? A job, a family? But things just kept piling up and I couldn't keep up." Woods listened intently, his expression thoughtful. He didn't offer platitudes or empty sympathy. Instead, he asked, "What would it take for you to get back on your feet?" David shrugged, his shoulders sagging under the weight of the question. "I don't know. A job, maybe? Somewhere to stay? But it's not that simple. People look at you like you're nothing, like you're not worth the effort." Woods nodded slowly, understanding the truth in David's words. He knew how cruel the world could be, how quickly it could strip someone of their dignity, but he also knew the power of a second chance. After breakfast, Woods made a call. Within an hour, a man in a tailored suit arrived, a representative from one of Woods' charitable foundations. The two men spoke briefly before Woods turned to David. "This is Mark," Woods said. "He's going to help you find a place to stay and get you set up with some resources. We'll cover the costs for now, but the rest is up to you." David's eyes filled with tears, his voice breaking as he tried to thank Woods. "I don't know why you're doing this for me," he said. "I'm just some guy who asked for $1. Woods smiled again, a rare, genuine smile that softened his usually stoic features. "Sometimes, all it takes is one small ask to change everything," he said, "and everyone deserves a shot at something better." As David was led away by Mark, Woods returned to his car, his mind heavy with thoughts. The encounter had reminded him of something his father once said: "The measure of a man isn't in his wealth or accomplishments, but in how he treats those who have nothing to offer him." Later that evening, as he stood before a room of philanthropists and celebrities at the charity gala, Woods shared the story of David Miller. He spoke not as a champion golfer or a global icon, but as a man who had witnessed the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of compassion. By the time the night was over, the foundation had raised an unprecedented amount of money, much of which would go toward programs designed to help individuals like David rebuild their lives. And while Tiger Woods would return to his world of tournaments and trophies, he carried with him the quiet satisfaction of knowing that for one man at least, a single dollar had been the start of something extraordinary. The night of the gala passed in a blur of handshakes, applause, and flashes of cameras. Yet Tiger Woods' thoughts remained tethered to the man he'd met that morning. Long after the crowd had dispersed and the echoes of the event faded, he found himself reflecting on the fragility of fortune and the thin line that separated privilege from poverty. The experience had stirred something deep within him, a recognition of how life could change in an instant, and how often society overlooked those trapped on the margins. As he lay awake in his hotel suite staring at the ornate ceiling, he thought about his own journey. Though his story was one of unparalleled triumph, it had not been without its own share of adversity. His fall from grace had been public and brutal, splashed across headlines for the world to dissect and judge. The scandals, injuries, and whispers of irrelevance could have broken him, but he had fought his way back, piece by piece, swing by swing. In some ways, he realized, he wasn't all that different from David. They had both faced moments when the world seemed determined to cast them aside. The difference was that Tiger had resources, support, and a platform to rebuild. David, on the other hand, was starting from nothing. The next morning, Tiger made a decision. He reached out to Mark, the foundation representative who had met with David, and asked for an update. Mark informed him that David had been placed in temporary housing and was scheduled to meet with a job placement advisor later that week. While this was encouraging, it didn't feel like enough. Tiger wanted to do more, not just for David, but for others like him. He began brainstorming, jotting down ideas on the hotel's notepad. What if the foundation expanded its reach to include programs specifically aimed at helping individuals experiencing homelessness? What if they could provide not just temporary relief, but pathways to sustainable independence? Tiger envisioned partnerships with businesses willing to hire people like David, skill-building workshops, and access to mental health services. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a fleeting moment of generosity, it was the beginning of something much bigger. Over the following weeks, Tiger threw himself into the project with the same intensity he brought to his golf game. He convened meetings with his foundation's board members, consulted experts on homelessness, and visited shelters to gain first-hand insight into the challenges faced by those living on the streets. He listened to their stories, their frustrations, and their dreams. Some had lost their homes due to medical emergencies, others because of job layoffs or abusive relationships. The reasons were varied, but the underlying truth was the same. They were people, each with a story that deserved to be heard. David Miller became a symbol for this new initiative, though Tiger made sure to respect his privacy. He shared the broader outlines of David's journey at fundraisers and press conferences, emphasizing the importance of giving people a chance rather than writing them off. The media quickly latched onto the story, dubbing it the Tiger and David Project. Donations poured in from around the world, not just from wealthy philanthropists, but also from everyday people moved by the narrative. Meanwhile, David's life began to change in ways he could scarcely have imagined. With the foundation's help, he secured a steady job as a warehouse supervisor, an industry he was familiar with from his days in construction. The work was physically demanding, but it gave him a sense of purpose and pride. He started saving money, slowly rebuilding his life one paycheck at a time. More importantly, he found a community among others who had been helped by the foundation. They formed a support network, sharing advice, encouragement, and even laughter as they navigated their new beginnings. For David, who had spent years feeling invisible, this newfound sense of belonging was transformative. Tiger and David stayed in touch sporadically, exchanging occasional updates through Mark. Though their lives were worlds apart, they shared a bond forged in that brief, serendipitous encounter. Tiger often thought about how easily he could have ignored David's plea, how simple it would have been to walk away and continue with his day. The thought filled him with a quiet resolve to remain mindful, to never let his success blind him to the struggles of others. As the Foundation's programs took shape, Tiger insisted on staying involved. He visited job fairs hosted by the initiative, personally meeting participants and listening to their stories. He even helped design a mentorship program, pairing individuals experiencing homelessness with professionals who could guide them toward stable careers. Tiger knew his name carried weight, and he used it to open doors that might otherwise remain closed. The impact was profound. Over the course of a year, the initiative helped hundreds of people transition from the streets to stable housing and employment. Families were reunited, children returned to school, and individuals once dismissed as hopeless began to reclaim their dignity. Tiger was humbled by the stories that emerged. Stories of resilience, determination, and the unyielding human spirit. One such story came from a woman named Carla, who had escaped an abusive relationship only to find herself living in her car. Through the Foundation's help, she not only found a safe place to live, but also secured a scholarship to pursue nursing, a dream she had put on hold for years. Another was a man named Luis, a former teacher who had fallen into addiction but was now sober, working as a counselor to help others overcome similar struggles. Each success reinforced Tiger's belief in the power of compassion and the ripple effects of a single act of kindness. For David, the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were days when the weight of his past threatened to drag him down, moments when the fear of losing everything again loomed large. But he had support now, a safety net he had never known before. He began volunteering at the Foundation's events, sharing his story to inspire others. Standing before audiences of donors and participants, he spoke with a newfound confidence, his voice steady and clear. "I used to think I was invisible," he said during one such event. "Like no one cared if I lived or died. But then someone saw me, really saw me, and that changed everything. I'll never forget what Tiger Woods did for me. But it's not just about me. It's about all of us. Every person deserves to be seen, to be valued, to have a chance." The crowd erupted in applause, but David's words lingered long after the event ended. They captured the essence of the initiative, the idea that true change begins with recognizing the humanity in each person no matter how far they've fallen. For Tiger, the experience became a defining chapter in his life. Though he continued to compete and add to his already illustrious career, his work with the Foundation brought him a different kind of fulfillment. It reminded him of his father's teachings, of the importance of leaving the world better than you found it. Years later, as he looked out at a room filled with Foundation alumni, people who had rebuilt their lives and were now giving back in their own ways, Tiger felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the journey that had brought him here, for the people who had believed in his vision, and for a man named David who had asked him for $1 on an ordinary morning. The journey that began with David Miller's simple request and Tiger Woods' unexpected generosity grew into a global movement. Tiger's decision to use his platform to address homelessness and create tangible change resonated far beyond his immediate sphere of influence. Over time, what started as a localized initiative expanded its reach, transforming countless lives across the country and eventually the world. The Foundation's program evolved to include comprehensive rehabilitation pathways. It was no longer just about providing food or shelter, though those remained crucial. It was about creating a sustainable system of empowerment. Workshops were introduced to teach life skill, financial literacy, and even conflict resolution. Tiger insisted on programs that provided not just a temporary fix but a framework for a stable future. The approach emphasized dignity and respect, treating each participant as an individual with unique needs and potential. One groundbreaking addition to the program was a partnership with innovative housing initiatives. The Foundation began working with architects and urban planners to develop micro-housing communities. These were thoughtfully designed spaces that offered safety, privacy, and affordability without sacrificing aesthetics or functionality. The communities also included communal areas to foster a sense of belonging among residents, countering the isolation many experienced during their time on the streets. Tiger personally visited these developments developments as they opened, often spending hours speaking with residents and listening to their stories. In one such community in Detroit, he met a man named Jerome, a former factory worker who had lost his job during an economic downturn. Jerome had been homeless for nearly a decade, drifting from shelter to shelter before finding stability in one of the foundation's microhomes. His story mirrored David's in some ways, but carried its own unique heartbreak. Yet, like David, Jerome's resilience shone through. "I didn't think anyone cared about people like me," Jerome told Tiger during their meeting. "But this place, it's given me hope. It's not just a roof over my head, it's a chance to rebuild my life." Jerome's story stayed with Tiger long after he left Detroit. It reminded him why this work mattered so deeply and why it required constant evolution. Tiger understood that success wasn't just measured in the number of people helped, but in the quality and longevity of the support provided. The foundation began exploring ways to tackle the systemic causes of homelessness. Advocacy campaigns were launched to address issues such as affordable housing shortages, inadequate mental health services, and wage disparities. Tiger knew that real change required more than individual acts of kindness. It demanded systemic reform. He used his influence to bring policymakers, business leaders, and community organizers together, fostering dialogues that led to actionable solutions. One of the most ambitious projects involved partnering with technology companies to create an app tailored to the needs of individuals experiencing homelessness. The app provided resources such as maps of nearby shelters, access to job postings, and a digital ID system that allowed users to securely store and share their personal information. It was a game changer for people who often faced barriers due to lost or stolen identification. David Miller played a crucial role in the app's development, offering insights based on his own experiences. He became a vocal advocate for the project, traveling to conferences and speaking about the importance of accessible technology. His journey from the streets to a position of leadership within the foundation was a testament to the program's potential to transform lives. As the years went by, Tiger's commitment to the cause deepened. He continued to juggle his professional golf career with his philanthropic efforts, though he often admitted that the latter brought him a unique kind of satisfaction. His ability to inspire action and rally support extended beyond his celebrity status. It came from his genuine belief in the power of human connection. One particularly memorable moment came during a charity tournament organized to raise funds for the foundation. Held at one of the world's most prestigious golf courses, the event drew celebrities, athletes, and philanthropists from around the globe. The highlight of the day wasn't the golf, however. It was a panel discussion featuring individuals who had benefited from the foundation's program. David Miller was among the speakers. Standing on stage before a crowd of thousands, he shared his story with an honesty that moved the audience to tears. He spoke about the day he met Tiger, about the $100 bill that changed his perspective, and about the opportunities that followed. But he also spoke about the challenges, the moments of self-doubt, the fear of slipping back into old patterns, and the struggle to believe he was worthy of a better life. "None of this would have happened without someone willing to take a chance on me," David said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Tiger didn't just give me money or a meal, he gave me the chance to believe in myself again, and now it's my turn to pay that forward." The audience erupted in applause, and Tiger, seated in the front row, couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. David's words captured the essence of what the foundation stood for: empowerment, compassion, and the understanding that every person deserved a second chance. The success of the foundation also inspired others to act. Philanthropists from various industries reached out to collaborate, offering resources, expertise, and funding. Athletes in other sports started similar initiatives, citing Tiger as their inspiration. A ripple effect took hold, spreading the message that addressing homelessness wasn't just an act of charity, it was a moral imperative. Media coverage of the foundation's work grew, and with it came stories of people whose lives had been forever changed. There was the single mother in Seattle who, after years of living in her car, found a stable home and started her own business. There was the veteran in Texas who overcame PTSD with the help of the foundation's counseling services and now worked as a mentor for other veterans. And there was the teenager in Atlanta who, after aging out of the foster care system, found a community and a future through the foundation's scholarship program. These stories painted a picture of hope, resilience, and the profound impact of a simple decision to care. They also served as a reminder that homelessness wasn't a monolith. It was a complex issue with countless faces and narratives, each deserving of attention and empathy. Tiger's involvement in the foundation didn't waver, even as his career evolved. He often spoke about how the experience had changed him, how it had deepened his understanding of humanity and his place in the world. He credited David Miller with opening his eyes to a reality he might have otherwise overlooked. In a rare interview, Tiger reflected on the moment that started it all. That day on the golf course, when David asked me for $1, it could have been anyone. I don't think it was an accident that it was him. Meeting David reminded me of something my father used to say, that greatness isn't just about what you achieve for yourself, but what you give to others. I think about that every day. By the time the foundation celebrated its 10th anniversary, it had helped tens of thousands of people across multiple continents. It had become a model for other organizations, demonstrating what could be accomplished with vision, determination, and a willingness to listen. The work was far from over. Homelessness remained a pervasive issue, but the foundation's impact was undeniable. For David, the anniversary was a milestone that brought both reflection and gratitude. He had come a long way from the man who stood outside a golf course, unsure whether to ask for help. His life now was filled with purpose, mentoring others, advocating for systemic change, and reminding people that no one was beyond redemption. One evening, after a particularly moving event, David and Tiger found themselves sitting together, reminiscing about the journey they had shared. The two men, once strangers from vastly different worlds, now spoke as friends. "You know," David said, looking out at the city skyline, "I used to think my life didn't matter, that I was just another face in the crowd, forgotten and invisible, but now I know that even the smallest actions can create something incredible." Tiger nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And it started with you asking for $1, he said. "It's funny how the simplest things can have the biggest impact." The two sat in companionable silence for a while, each lost in his own thought. Their journey had been improbable, filled with twists and challenges, but it had brought them to a place neither could have imagined. It was proof, they both agreed, that change was always possible, no matter how daunting the odds. As the night deepened, Tiger and David parted ways, each returning to his own life. But the bond they shared, the story they had built together, would endure. It was a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of seeing others, and the extraordinary impact of a single moment of kindness. The growth of the initiative, spearheaded by Tiger Woods, continued to evolve into realms no one had anticipated. Beyond addressing homelessness, the foundation began to tackle its root causes with greater precision, focusing on preventive measures. Tiger and his team realized that while it was crucial to help those already struggling, creating pathways to prevent homelessness altogether was equally important. This shift in strategy marked a new phase for the foundation and further cemented its legacy as a transformative force. One of the most innovative programs launched during this period was aimed at youth aging out of the foster care system. Studies showed that this demographic was at high risk of homelessness due to a lack of support networks and limited opportunities. Tiger's foundation partnered with educational institutions and local governments to create transitional housing and scholarship programs specifically tailored to these young adults. The goal was not just to give them a place to live, but to equip them with the skills and resources they needed to thrive independently. Tiger also turned his attention to corporate partnerships, understanding the role businesses could play in creating sustainable change. He convened roundtable discussions with CEOs and industry leaders, urging them to consider how their companies could contribute. Many responded with enthusiasm, creating internship and apprenticeship programs for individuals transitioning out of homelessness. These opportunities provided not just jobs but pathways to long-term careers. One of the most impactful partnerships was with a major tech company that agreed to fund a coding boot camp for homeless individuals with an interest in technology. The program, aptly named Code to Home, was a resounding success. Participants who had once struggled to secure even the most basic necessities were now working as software developers, earning salaries that allowed them to rebuild their lives entirely. The transformation was so dramatic that it garnered international attention, inspiring similar initiatives in other industries. As the foundation's influence grew, Tiger remained deeply involved. He made it a point to personally visit new programs, meeting with participants and ensuring that their voices were heard. His humility and genuine commitment won him admiration from even the most skeptical critics, many of whom admitted that his work off the course rivaled his accomplishments on it. In one memorable instance, Tiger attended a graduation ceremony for participants of the Code to Home program. As each graduate walked across the stage shaking his hand and receiving their certificate, the room was filled with an undeniable sense of pride and possibility. When it was Sierra's turn, she paused, tears glistening in her eyes, and said, "You didn't just change my life, Tiger. You gave me the chance to change others' lives too." The moment encapsulated everything Tiger had hoped to achieve. What had started as a single act of generosity, a chance encounter with David Miller, had grown into a movement that rippled outward, touching lives in ways no one could have foreseen. Tiger's foundation had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the transformative power of empathy and action. As he looked out at the room filled with people whose lives had been rebuilt, Tiger understood that the true measure of success wasn't in trophies or accolades, but in the lasting impact one could have on the world. As the years went by, the foundation's work began to influence global conversations about homelessness and systemic inequality. Recognizing that homelessness was not confined to one country or culture, Tiger Woods and his team sought to expand their mission internationally. They formed alliances with organizations across Europe, Asia, and Africa, adapting their programs to meet the unique challenges of each region. The Johannesburg Project introduced mobile health clinics that not only provided medical care, but also connected individuals to mental health services. For many, this marked the first time they had access to comprehensive health care. Among those helped was a man named Thabo, who had spent years on the streets after losing his family in a tragic accident. With the foundation's support, Thabo received counseling and vocational training, eventually finding work as a community health advocate. His story became a rallying cry for the program's expansion, inspiring similar projects in other African cities. Meanwhile, in Japan, the foundation tackled the often hidden issue of homelessness among the elderly. Cultural stigmas around poverty made it difficult for older individuals to seek help, leaving many to suffer in silence. Working with Japanese nonprofits, Tiger's team developed discreet outreach programs, including food delivery services that doubled as wellness checks. These efforts provided not only sustenance but also human connection, reminding recipients that they were not forgotten. Tiger's approach was always rooted in empathy and adaptability. He understood that effective solutions required listening to the people directly affected and valuing their input. This philosophy resonated strongly in countries with unique cultural contexts, allowing the foundation to build trust and foster collaboration. Back in the United States, the foundation didn't lose momentum. It launched a groundbreaking public awareness campaign titled Faces of Resilience, featuring portraits and stories of individuals who had overcome homelessness through the foundation's programs. The campaign challenged stereotypes, showcasing the diversity and humanity of those who had once been dismissed by society. Billboards, social media posts, and short documentaries reached millions, sparking conversations about how people viewed and treated the homeless. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on a homeless man asking Tiger Woods for $1? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.